right, so today we're going to really dig into Nano-X Imaging.
Sounds good.
This company wants to, well, they're aiming to make getting a 3D medical scan, those detailed ones, like as affordable and accessible as a simple X-ray.
Wow.
And a pretty bold vision.
Yeah, it is, totally.
And, you've sent me a whole stack of info on them.
Uh-huh.
So let's see. Let's, figure out, are these guys the real deal or is it all hype?
Yeah, let's do it.
So to start, maybe give us a quick overview of Nano-X. Like, what are they all about?
Yeah, so Nano-X Imaging, they're a medical imaging company. And like you said, their big goal is to really democratize medical imaging and make it accessible and affordable for everyone.
Okay, and how are they planning to do that? What's their, secret weapon?
Well, their flagship product is this device called the NNOX.ARC.
Okay.
It's a 3D digital tomosynthesis system. Basically, it's like a CT scanner, but designed to be way cheaper and more accessible.
I see. So it's not just about making a cheaper CT scanner. It's like a whole new way of doing things.
Right, exactly. It's a completely different technology.
Okay, so walk me through this tech.
Yeah.
How is it different from traditional CT scanners?
Sure. So the key here is something called a cold cathode.
Cold cathode, okay.
Yeah. You see, traditional CT scanners, they use this really hot filament to generate X-rays, and that requires all these bulky cooling systems and a ton of energy to run.
Right.
But Nano-X's cold cathode tech, it does all that at room temperature.
So it's kind of like the difference between those old incandescent light bulbs and the energy-saving LED ones.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Much more efficient, much less energy needed.
Exactly. And that's a huge deal because it means they can make the NNOX.ARC significantly cheaper to produce and operate.
Which I'm guessing is key to their whole business model.
You got it. They've come up with this innovative radiology as a service model.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but explain it like I'm 5.
All right, so imagine instead of buying a whole jukebox, you just pay for the songs you want to play. That's kind of what they're doing.
So they're not selling the device outright.
Well, they can, but their main focus is to provide the NNOX.ARC at a very low cost, or even for free in some cases, and then they charge a fee per scan.
Interesting. So they're betting on volume. The more scans, the more revenue.
Exactly. It's a bold move, but it could really shake things up.
But it's not just about device sales and per scan fees, right?
Yeah.
They have other ways to make money, too.
Oh, absolutely. They have software subscriptions for their cloud-based platform,
Right.
maintenance contracts for the devices, teleradiology services. It's really a whole ecosystem built around this technology.
Sounds like they're thinking big long term.
For sure. And the market they're targeting is enormous. We're talking about a global medical imaging market worth billions, and it's only going to grow from here.
Yeah, but that market is already dominated by some pretty big players, right? GE, Siemens, those are some heavy hitters.
Right.
How can Nano-X compete with them?
It's definitely a David and Goliath situation, you're right.
Yeah.
But their cost advantage could be a game changer, especially in developing countries where access to advanced imaging is limited.
Makes sense. If they can offer these scans at a fraction of the cost, that's a huge competitive advantage.
Exactly. And their integrated service ecosystem, that could also give them an edge. Think about it, a small clinic in rural India being able to offer 3D scans at an affordable price with remote radiologists interpreting the images.
It's a pretty compelling proposition, especially for those underserved markets.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about the tech, the business model, the market opportunity. Now let's shift gears and talk about the people behind Nano-X. From what I've read, it seems like there's been some, let's say, interesting developments in their leadership.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
It seems like they've had a bit of a roller coaster ride when it comes to management, especially with their founder.
Right. So the founder, Rand Palikine, he was, a brilliant visionary, but also known for making some pretty bold claims.
Claims that didn't always pan out.
Yeah, let's just say things didn't always move as quickly as people expected.
And then there were those short seller attacks, right?
Yeah.
Accusations of shady dealings, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a rough period for Nano-X, a real trial by fire.
What happened there?
Well, thankfully, the SEC investigation eventually cleared them of any wrongdoing, but the damage was done,
Yeah, those kinds of accusations can really hurt a company's reputation.
Absolutely.
So how did Nano-X recover from all of that?
Well, there was a significant shift in leadership. Erez Meltzer took over as CEO in 2023.
Okay.
He brought a more, pragmatic and execution-focused approach.
So less visionary, more about getting things done.
Exactly. They've been laser-focused on getting FDA approval, building partnerships, and really proving that their technology works.
Sounds like a necessary change, especially after all the controversy.
Definitely.
But let's be honest, their financials haven't exactly been stellar, have they?
Well, they're not profitable yet. That's true.
Still burning through cash.
Yeah, they're investing heavily in research and development, scaling up manufacturing, expanding their operations.
That's understandable for a company this stage, I guess. But their balance sheet, at least, seems to be in decent shape, right?
Yeah, they've been very careful with their debt levels, and they do have a good chunk of cash on hand.
So it gives them some breathing room to execute their plans without being crushed by debt.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a classic high-growth, high-burn situation.
Yes, it is.
They're betting big on the future, but it's still very early days.
For sure.
We'll definitely need to keep an eye on their cash burn rate and how quickly they can start generating revenue from those per-scan fees.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The tech, the business model, the leadership, the financials. It's clear Nano-X has a lot potential, but also some significant challenges ahead of them.
Definitely a company to watch.
All right, so when we come back, we'll dig deeper into how the market is reacting to Nano-X, their ownership structure, and their overall risk profile. Stay tuned.
Sounds good. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out in the real world. You know, that revenue model.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the real world, let's look at how the market is reacting to Nano-X.
Okay.
Their stock, it's been on a roller coaster ride.
Oh, tell me about it. Remember back in 2021? It was like everyone was going crazy for Nano-X. The stock was soaring.
Yeah, there was so much hype.
People were so excited about the potential, but then, well, reality hit.
Yeah, it was classic, what do they call it? Irrational exuberance.
That's the one.
The market was basically, you know, pricing in all this success before they'd even proven anything. Like, could they even make it work on a large scale?
Right. It was all based on promises and potential, not actual results.
Exactly. And then the short seller reports came out. There were regulatory delays. It all just kind of came crashing down.
So what's the sentiment like now? Have things changed?
I'd say it's a mixed bag, to be honest.
Right.
There's definitely some cautious optimism, you know, after they got FDA clearance and started actually deploying those devices. But there's still a lot of skepticism out there.
Makes sense.
Some analysts think they're on the verge of, like, a major breakthrough,
Right.
while others are like, nah, I'm going to wait and see some real results before I jump on board.
So the market's in show-me mode.
Exactly. They want to see that revenue growth, you know, the actual numbers, not just promises.
What about that short interest? I read somewhere that there's still a pretty high short interest in Nano-X's stock.
That's right. There's still a good chunk of investors who are betting against them.
Wow. So they're basically saying, we think this company is going to fail.
Pretty much, yeah. They think Nano-X is going to fall flat and they're going to profit from it.
It's a high-stakes game, for sure.
It is.
All right, so we've got this mix of opinions. Some people are bullish, some are bearish, but it all makes you wonder, like, who actually owns all these shares?
Yeah, good point.
What can you tell me about Nano-X's ownership structure?
Well, it's a pretty diverse group. You've got your big institutional investors like BlackRock, Vanguard. They hold a decent chunk of the shares.
Okay.
And then you have, well, the founders' estate. They still own a sizable portion.
So there's no single entity that has, like, a controlling stake?
Not really, no. Institutional ownership is fairly modest, and there isn't one shareholder that's calling all the shots.
Interesting.
Oh, and here's something that might interest you. Insider ownership is relatively high.
What does that tell us?
It could be a good sign. You know, it might mean that management has skin in the game. They're aligned with the other shareholders.
Right. Their interests are tied to the company's success.
Exactly. But, you know, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Of course, we can't read too much into it.
Right.
So, okay, we've got this mix of investors. Nobody's really calling the shots. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to execution. Right?
Absolutely.
Can Nano-X actually deliver on their vision? Let's talk about their risk profile.
Okay. Sounds good.
What are their biggest strengths? You know, what's working in their favor?
Well, their technology is definitely a major strength.
Right.
That cold cathode X-ray source and their NNOX.ARC system, it has the potential to really disrupt the industry.
It's a game changer if it works as advertised.
It is.
And they're using AI in some pretty interesting ways too, right?
Oh, yeah. They're really leveraging AI to try and improve image quality and diagnostic accuracy.
So they're not just a hardware company. They're incorporating software and AI into their platform.
Exactly. And that radiology as a service model we talked about, that could be huge, especially for those underserved markets where cost is a major barrier.
And those markets are only getting bigger, right?
Yeah.
As healthcare becomes more globalized.
Exactly. So they've definitely got some strong tailwinds working in their favor.
Okay, so we've got the strengths,
Yeah.
but every company has weaknesses. What are some of the things that are working against Nano-X?
Well, for one, they don't have a very long track record. They've only deployed a small number of devices so far, so it remains to be seen if they can really scale up their manufacturing and distribution effectively.
So the can they actually deliver question?
Exactly. And of course, they're still burning through cash.
Right. Always a concern for investors.
It is. And you can't forget about the competition. They're up against some really big, well-established players in healthcare.
David and Goliath situation.
Again, pretty much, yeah. And any regulatory setbacks could really throw a wrench in their plans.
So lots of challenges ahead.
Lots of challenges.
What about opportunities? What are some things that could really drive their success?
Well, that huge untapped market for affordable medical imaging, that's a massive opportunity.
It is.
If they can just capture a small slice of that market, the growth potential is incredible.
And their per-scan model seems like a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And they're also in a great position to benefit from the growth of AI in healthcare.
Right, we talked about that a bit.
Their acquisitions, like Zebra Medical Vision that specializes in AI-powered image analysis, those could really pay off big time down the road.
Okay, so lots of potential upside.
Lots of potential.
But what about threats? What are some things that could really derail their plans?
Well, besides the competition and regulatory hurdles, there's always the risk that their technology just doesn't live up to the hype.
Meaning?
Like, what if the image quality isn't good enough, or if the devices are unreliable? That would be a major setback.
Right, and those short sellers would have a field day.
Oh, yeah.
What about things like the economy?
Good point. They're definitely vulnerable to economic downturns or any changes in healthcare spending.
The pandemic really showed us how quickly things can change.
It did.
That uncertainty is always a risk factor for any business.
Absolutely.
It sounds like Nano-X is just a fascinating case study, really.
It is. It is.
A company with this bold vision, disruptive technology, huge potential, but also facing some serious challenges.
It's high risk, high reward, that's for sure.
So we've really gone deep on Nano-X. You know, looked at their business model, their financials, even who owns the company.
Yeah.
But the big question for a lot of people listening is probably, should I invest?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, and I know you can't give financial advice.
Right, of course.
But what are your thoughts?
Well, honestly, it really depends on you, you know?
What do you mean?
It comes down to your own risk tolerance and your investment goals.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like, if you're looking for a safe bet, something predictable, Nano-X is probably not the right fit.
So this is not like a, what is it, a blue chip stock or something?
No, not at all.
More like a venture capital kind of play.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
High risk, high reward.
Exactly. You really have to believe in their vision, their ability to execute.
So if someone's thinking about investing in Nano-X, what should they be looking at?
Well, first off, you got to look at the financials, right?
Cash on hand, burn rate, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep. How much cash do they have? How quickly are they spending it? When do they think they'll actually turn a profit?
Right. And then there's the competition.
Huge factor.
Can they really compete with those big players?
It's a tough battle, that's for sure.
So even if everything goes perfectly, this is a long-term investment, right?
Oh, absolutely. Could be years before they see any significant returns.
If they ever do.
Right. There's always that risk.
It's a gamble.
It is. But even if you decide not to invest, I think Nano-X is a fascinating company to follow just to see what happens.
I agree. Their mission is pretty inspiring.
It is.
Trying to democratize access to medical imaging, I mean, that could really change the world.
Yeah, imagine everyone having access to affordable 3D scans, regardless of where they live or how much money they make.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps up our deep dive on Nano-X imaging.
Yeah, I think we covered it all.
We hope you found it informative, maybe even gave you some food for thought.
And as always, remember, this is not financial advice.
Right. Do your own research before making any investment decisions.
Always a good idea.
And if you're interested in learning more about AI and investing, be sure to check out the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel.
Lots of great content over there.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
See you next time.
Until then, happy investing.